Everybody likes a good shonen. They occupy such a huge space in the anime market because they appeal to just about everyone. Romance, action, drama, a shonen series can tap into any one of these to hook their audience in. And that's why almost every series that's blown up recently has been a shonen. Chainsaw Man, Spy Family, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen. Every single one of these shows has made it big, and a lot of it is due to their identity as a shonen. But recently, while reading through some new manga, I realized that there's this one certain trope that seems to be ruining a lot of shonen series that have good potential. And looking back, this trope has been part of the shonen genre almost since day one. I don't really have a single catchy name for this trope as it comes under different names in all of the different series it appears in, but I'll do my best to explain it to you guys as simply as possible. So in a world, there are monsters of some kind that seek to harm humans for some reason or another. And to combat this, an organization of people have been created to beat these monsters. The main character, after having an experience usually with these monsters, joins this organization as a wildcard, a member with nothing but untapped potential to their name. Bonus points added to this trope if the organization or the main character harness powers that are similar or derivative from the monster's powers. Sorry if that explanation was a tiny bit confusing, but immediately I'm sure you can think of a lot of series that fit this exact trope. The first ones that come to mind are some of those shonen series I just mentioned. Chainsaw Man has this concept almost exactly in the form of the Devil Hunters, even with the bonus of Denji being able to transform into a devil. Demon Slayer also has this trope with the Demon Slayer core, with Nezuko, the main character's sister, being a demon. And Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't have as clear of an organization, but the different groups of sorcerers basically count. And to top it off, Yuji can transform into or be possessed by Sukuna, a cursed spirit. And these are just the biggest and most recent examples. Full Metal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, Hunter x Hunter, Bleach, Fairy Tail, Black Clover, all of these have similar or the same story structure as these series that I've just mentioned. And I'm sure that's only the tip of the iceberg. And by the way, I'm not saying these series are bad for using this formula. Each of these series brings something new to the table, and that's the reason for them being as beloved as they are. Heck, most of these shonen series are among my favorite series ever. But it's just interesting to note how many series have followed this formula and how they distinguish themselves from the crowd. No, when I say this is the biggest problem with shonen series, I'm not talking about the good ones, because they're, good. The series that I am talking about are the ones that use this trope despite having no reason to. As I just said, I don't have a bone to pick with these well-respected shonen series, because honestly, I'm a big fan of them as well. But since I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with their story to at least some extent, I'm just going to use them as an example. So the way a lot of these shonen stories go is they start off by putting the main character in extreme danger by breaking their established life to pieces. In Jujutsu Kaisen, for example, the main character is possessed by one of the most powerful cursed spirits in the world, thus breaking them out of their own life and pushing them into a new and wildly different situation. Same with Demon Slayer. Tanjiro's family is killed by one of the most powerful demons around, thus pushing him to go out and explore the world for revenge. Many of these stories follow this format, starting off with the main character living their life and then breaking that life down. That's one of the most basic ideals of storytelling in general. It's not even specifically a shonen thing. But this is usually the point in the story where the trope I was talking about earlier kicks in. After the story's gone through a lot of intense and usually dramatic action, it's good from a storytelling standpoint to provide some rigidity and calmness to the proceedings. And this is why the trope is used so insanely often, as it's a good way to slow the story down and provide some regularity to the flow of it all. The issue I have with the use of this trope is that it's really just not that interesting. In a show like Demon Slayer, this trope really works. Demon Slayer follows a sort of monster of the week formula for a lot of its runtime, meaning the use of the Demon Slayer core to provide motivation and reasoning to this journey is understandable. Demon Slayer's focus is clearly set on the characters and the fights. It doesn't really matter how we get from one cool set piece to another as long as those set pieces deliver on the expectations. This works similarly in Chainsaw Man as well, a series focused on the fights, the characters, and the introspection that follows. Chainsaw Man isn't focused on the world or exploration. The story knows its strengths and uses the Devil Hunters in order to highlight them. But not all shonen have the same strengths as these ones do. If we were to compare these series to video games, Chainsaw Man and Demon Slayer and other shows of this type would be linear games focused on story or action. And it's with stories of these types where I find this trope is acceptable. However, with series that are more akin to open world games where the focus is or should be on the world, this trope is insanely annoying to say the least. Gachi Akuta is a new shonen manga that's shown a lot of promise in its recent run, displaying amazing art, a cool premise, and an interesting world to boot. But I have a problem with this series. So, Gachi Akuta has an insanely cool world. The premise of the story centers around this floating island which roams around the land. Most of the people on this island are prosperous and happy, except for those who are in the slums, which make up the less fortunate of the people on the island. These people get rid of their trash and excess by throwing it off the island and letting it fall to God knows where below. The trash in reality then falls down to the ground and collects in giant trash heaps, which made life on the ground a living hell. The people on the island don't know that any other people exist, and those on the ground have no way of getting up to the island. The world in turn has been transformed because of this. The people of the land have to survive however they can, and the trash-filled landscape makes for an interesting setting. It's a futuristic, dystopian world with an aspect of fantasy stemming from the characters' use of their supernatural powers. So, without going any further, I hope you can see the story has a really interesting world. The characters and settings that exist in this world are so unique and far removed from other stories that it just begs to be developed further. In my opinion, a story of this type deserves a more open story structure, something akin to One Piece or Hunter x Hunter. The main character, who happens to be someone from the floating island who fell to the ground, could have an awe-inspiring journey traveling through the land and trying to discover a way to get back to his home in the sky. The different locales in this manga would lend amazingly to this too, and the characters who have to suffer in this world could be highlighted better by a small supporting cast, yet that's sadly not what the story chose to follow. Almost immediately after landing on the ground after being cast off the floating island, the main character, Rudo, encounters a badass man who helps him escape from some trash monsters. Don't worry about them for now. The man then eventually brings Rudo under the care of an organization of monster hunters, where he discovers that he has the same powers as the people of the organization, except his power is mysteriously stronger than everyone else's for some bizarre reason. In order to try and get back to his home, Rudo goes on missions with a group of monster hunters, learning about the world and its inhabitants along the way. You guys see the problem here? The setting is unique, the characters are unique, the power system is unique, so why make the whole thing so much worse with a generic, overused story structure like this? Letting the main character be a fish out of water and letting him learn about how terrible life is on the surface would have been so much more interesting. This could have also lent to a really cool character arc. When Rudo was on the island, he was part of the lower class, and being from a lesser fortunate family, he felt a bond with a lot of the trash that was thrown away by the nobles of the island. And now he stands in a land full of the same trash that he feels a kinship to. Rudo also coming across some of these insane landmarks could have been so fun to watch. Like, just look at this city. It's a city where everything was painted white to allow people to draw whatever they want wherever they want it. It's a way to inspire hope in people despite the terrible circumstances they find themselves in. Just think about how cool it could have been for Rudo to find this place on his own. I'm trying my best to not be pretentious and pretend like I know how to write a story better than anyone else may, but it just kinda makes me sad to see a cool hook taken in this direction. It wouldn't have been too big of a deal if the organization of janitors, as they're called, were a minor part of the story, but no, they're basically the driving force behind everything the main character does. Like, in Hunter x Hunter, for example, the Hunter organization exists in the story, but the world is still being explored by the main character's own wills and desires. And that's why the story is so fun. There's no one escorting Gon or Killua around. They explore the world like they want to, and that's just really fun to watch. I know there's a lot of toxicity associated with the shonen marketplace, as so many series seek to compete to try and become the next big thing, but it's a shame to see such a creatively rich and wonderful story be taken in such a cliche direction. I'm sure some people may say I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but I was genuinely so invested in Rudo's story for a while until I saw the direction it started to go. And I still am invested, honestly. The better aspects of the world and characters really shine through, but they just could have shown a lot brighter if utilized in a more interesting way. Anyways, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye!